Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here, as always, by the man who is currently brushing off his Jacoby Brissett jersey. Kyle, how are you doing?
Doing good. Got a quarterback today, so feeling pretty good, and feeling pretty good about the team. I thought it was a good start to the offseason. I hope everyone's enjoyed their offseason so far. Been a hectic couple days.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are very optimistic now. A lot of people are very pessimistic now, depending on where you're going. Let's just talk about the Patriots for now. I want to just do that.
Yeah, yeah. Let's do a whole hour.
Yeah, the Uche signing, that was a nice one.
I like Uche.
Yeah,
Like
23 million.
get
What a steal.
yeah. Yeah, I mean that was good. Gibson was cheap. Brissett is a nice bridge quarterback. I mean, I can't complain about any of the signings so far. Who else did they get? Got Onwenu back on a good deal, it seemed like, too. So, can't complain.
I just got to be clear. I was kidding about spending the whole hour talking about the Patriots.
I wasn't. So,
Yeah, that was
Calvin
on me. That was my
Ridley.
bad.
Yeah, Calvin Ridley, feel free to change your mind. Tyron Smith, come on down. Let's make it happen, baby.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get into the more hot button stuff. But Calvin Ridley being like, the Patriots are paying me what I want, but I kind of don't want to go there. So if anyone else, if Jacksonville, if you guys want it, cool. If not, I guess I'll settle for New England. That's a fun story.
Yeah. Not that fun for me, but
fun depending on where you're looking. Fun if you're not a Patriots fan. Yeah. Kyle, kind of a crazy, hectic 24 hours, or a little bit over, I guess, like 29 hours at this point. I'm not sure exactly where you want to start. You want to start with the story that broke today. How about the Baltimore Ravens getting Derrick Henry? That's a fun one, right? Because running backs in general, we have a lot to go over with them. But, I think there's two ways to take the Derrick Henry signing, right? There's he is a veteran running back who did seem to take a step back, although was still really good last year, but did seem to take a step back. Is that, is this a mistake? And could you have spent that money elsewhere? Maybe re-signing Queen would have made more sense. The other aspect, though, is if this works, he could be absolutely amazing.
Definitely. And his yards per carry wasn't that great last year, but he was still kind of a monster. He still led the league in carries. He was still, I think PFF, he had a top 3 running back grade by Pro Football Focus. And yeah, so I mean, there's certainly some risk element to it, but obviously the rewards are, I mean, you're just thinking of a backfield with Lamar Jackson running the read option to Derrick Henry. I mean,
Yeah.
that's an unsolvable problem, right? Like it's okay to build on your strengths sometimes. And I get the Patrick Queen thing, maybe bring him back, but like I've never been his biggest fan, even when he like kind of bounced back and played better last season. And you could talk me into that team being okay even at linebacker without Patrick Queen. So maybe they just felt like, you know what, we have a lot of our stuff checked. We have everything we kind of need already. Let's just double down on a strength here and build upon it. And I think at least for this year, I think it could be pretty good. I mean, I don't know how much longer Derrick Henry's legs are going to hold up, but this is going to be a much easier job for him. I don't expect Derrick Henry to lead the NFL in carries again playing in Baltimore because they have secondary options at running back. They have Lamar Jackson who can use his legs, and I think they should be able to maximize his talent and whatever he has left in the tank because they're going to be minimizing his touches.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly high upside move. That's why they're doing it. It's the upside. Also, I meant to mention this at the beginning of the show. We're doing this a day early. We had to do it a day early, so no show tomorrow because we're doing it today. So anyone who's checking in on Wednesday, wondering why we're not talking about some moves that broke Wednesday morning, well, because we're doing it Tuesday afternoon instead. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's a fun one. Do we feel the Patrick Queen stuff? I'm higher on Patrick Queen. Is this maybe bigger picture? Is this why you don't go out and pay a linebacker, or not pay a linebacker? Is this why you don't draft a linebacker in the first round? Because a lot of times you end up spending years developing him, finally get him good, and then he just goes and signs somewhere else.
There's an argument for it. I mean, how many big time linebackers have we seen move? It feels like it's the most volatile position at this point with guys moving teams. I mean, you go back to last year, I think like all 3 of the top free agent linebackers all moved teams. And then all the top linebackers, it seemed like this year have moved teams as well. So it just seems like it is position.
Uh, linebacker, former Broncos linebacker Josie Jewell, who I think is a good player, signs with the Panthers. So more linebackers changing teams as we speak.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and there's going to be more stuff that breaks. Unless something major happens, I don't imagine we're going to touch on everything that breaks during the show. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it like, yeah, it is a volatile position. And I think there is an argument for it. But yeah, I mean, let's put it this way: if the Ravens were to win the Super Bowl this next season,
Hmm.
I think Derrick Henry would be a bigger reason why than Patrick Queen. And
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
yeah, I even acknowledge that Derrick Henry has lost a little bit of a step, but he's still
Hmm.
really good. I mean, he's still really good. Like I said, the yards per carry isn't obviously awesome, but he's still proven he could take on a huge workload, and he's still going to be a monster in the red zone for this team.
Yeah, it's maybe not the highest floor move, but it feels like a higher upside move. What do you think about it from the Steelers' perspective? Though? Let's just go to Steelers in general, or I guess before that we can
Oh
talk
wait, I
about.
have one more thing about that too,
Oh yeah, go ahead.
because the other team in this is Tennessee, who obviously made the decision to cut bait from Derrick Henry this year.
Uh huh.
And I just think it's interesting because, he's making $8 million a year. It can get up to $10 million a year. And then they go and get Tony Pollard for $8 million a year for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I don't know. Tony Pollard's fine, but they just drafted a running back last year who showed some flashes. Now they're going to be paying another running back, and they let a running back who was kind of their franchise guy walk at the same price. I mean, that's kind of a weird. Tennessee's been weird for a few years now, but I just don't understand the logic to that.
It's weird. My guess is, I think it was a Derrick Henry decision, not a Titans decision. I think he wasn't. I think he was ready to move on.
It could be, and they cleaned so much house. I'm sure he was like, "This is a good time for me to cut
I
bait,"
think he's like,
right?
I'll go play it with Lamar in Baltimore. I think that sounds more fun.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like,
But
well,
it's
what was the
just,
offensive line last year? Yeah, I'm good with. I think like those guys better.
yeah. I mean, that's 100% probably what it is. It's just
Mhm.
interesting because there was a talk of like it was very worded at the end of the season that the Titans were ready to move on from Derrick Henry. And they did that whole tribute thing.
Mhm.
He was, the last game, all that. And it seemed like the Titans were ready to move on. And then they move on to go and get Tony Pollard. That's the part I don't get. And these running backs deals where some of them are pretty insane. Some of them I think make some sense. But yeah, I mean, I just think those two in particular, side by side, are interesting.
Yeah, we can talk about in the chat. This happened right before we got live. I'll update any moves that happen as we go along. But yeah, Jeremy Chin to Washington, which that's an interesting move. They could use about I don't know 6 or 7 other starters, but off to a good start.
Yeah, they definitely need a lot of help on defense. So that secondary was really poor. Chin should help. Chin should definitely help.
Yeah. Let's go to Pittsburgh, who added Patrick Queen. So there's the transition, but also the kind of big headline move is the Russell Wilson thing. As they're making moves here. Pittsburgh's they're doing stuff. Now, is this the right stuff? We can debate it. I don't know. I still haven't seen the actual contract details on Wilson, but it seems like it's a very team friendly deals from what I understand because he's getting paid so much by Denver. I don't hate what Pittsburgh's doing here. I really don't.
I don't hate it either. And even as I just said, I'm not the biggest Patrick Queen fan. Like, I think as we saw, like, especially the top line linebackers in free agency, like we saw the two guys last year get pretty big hauls for
Yeah.
contracts, right? And then 3 years for $41 million seems a lot more manageable for Pittsburgh. And that fits pretty seamlessly in that defense, too. I think he's really going to help there at least. Even if I don't think he's like, I don't think he's like a high end upside guy. But yeah, I just think that makes a lot of sense to me. That defense is loaded. It gets even scarier adding another competent player in that middle of the field. And then yeah, I mean I understand what they're doing here, and I understand the Russell Wilson thing. You're basically buying at the all-time low, right? And you're getting it for dirt cheap. You're getting Wilson for dirt cheap. And at the very least, like, the conversation we said all of last year was, Russell Wilson hasn't played that bad. He's just playing bad for his contract, right?
Hmm.
And now he's on a contract that he's probably going to be playing above the value of that contract this season, assuming even it's like replicable to what he was last year. And, I think this is, especially, depending on how this offense looks under Arthur Smith, this could also be a better situation than where he was at in Denver. I think the receivers are better here. They got a little bit more of a running game. I think they got a little more weapons.
Yeah, Denver was kind of a sneaky bad situation these past 2 years. I feel like people
Mhm.
didn't really realize that because it was kind of okay before he got there, but it did fall off a cliff a little bit. And maybe that was partially him. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's when people really kind of seemingly struggle with this, but it's just one of those things where you're better off getting the 20th best quarterback for no money than the 10th best quarterback for 45 million a year, right? That's a better situation, even though people don't tend to view it that way.
Is that an Atlanta subtweet?
We'll talk about them. I'm just saying. I mean, I picked 45, but yeah, I mean, we'll get into all that. But
Yeah.
that I didn't just happen to land on 45 million a year, Kyle.
Yeah, that's fair.
Hmm.
No, I agree. And I think people were so quick to say how bad quarterbacks were last year. And
Hmm.
I don't think it was really as dire as some people thought. Like the really bad quarterbacks were really bad. And the problem is that the bad quarterbacks last year were all really young players we wanted to see work out. Like Wilson, I
Hmm.
thought for the most part was fine. And, he did most of what he had to do. So I just think it makes sense. And, if you looked at Pittsburgh right now compared to what Pittsburgh was by the end of last year, Pittsburgh is 100% better, right? They're better at quarterback and they're better at linebacker because of these moves. Was this the best possible outcome? Could they have, gotten into the potential Kirk Cousins sweepstakes, or could they have, maybe try to trade up and draft someone? Maybe, but that also requires more assets. And, at least for now, you could say Russell Wilson is a good stopgap.
Yeah, it's if it all goes to hell, well, fine. Whatever. Like they made the playoffs last year with they went with Mason Rudolph as their starter in the postseason, and it was the right move.
Yeah. Yeah. That's never a good sign for your quarterback room, right?
Yeah, usually not. But yeah, again, I don't know what the ceiling is on this team, but it's like, well, if it all goes, again, part of the difference between this and like a Kirk Cousins thing is if it all goes to hell, then you're good. Whatever, move on. Like it's a 1 year deal. Like what else?
Yeah.
It's a lot. Anything else they did would put them at risk to like tank the whole season basically, like or tank the whole like next few seasons. This can only hurt them this year.
Yeah. It's an extremely low risk move.
Yeah.
And you know, better low risk, low reward is better than high risk, low reward, right?
Right. Yeah. That's exactly well said. I am interested in, and again, I wouldn't have hated if they went with Cousins, but you want to just go to Cousins?
Yeah, I mean, let's just continue with the quarterbacks because those are the two biggest quarterback moves, I'd say.
Hmm.
And although I still Jacoby Brissett's better. No, I'm just kidding. He might be better, but
Might I think then Wilson, you have an argument.
yeah, that's what I meant.
Hmm.
But the Atlanta Falcons get a guy, and look, is it a lot of money? Is he 36 years old? The answer to both of those questions are yes. But once again, Atlanta is way better than they were last season. And you just, if you didn't watch this team last year, I don't think you should comment on the contract for Kirk Cousins because quarterback play probably was the single biggest factor for this team more than anybody else last year for winning and losing several games, right? Like,
Well, at least in a negative way. Like I think you could, like
yeah,
Mahomes for the Chiefs in a positive, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
yeah. I mean, this was the single biggest like negative impact position for any team in the NFL. Like competent quarterback play. Like if even I would have loved it if they even just brought in Russell Wilson and they got a better
Hmm.
player. Like
Yeah.
a healthy Kirk Cousins is really good still. So or pretty good still. So yeah, I mean I think that this is it's an expensive contract. It's an older player. There is some risk there. But like this is way better of a situation. Like this is what this team needed 100%. It's they were a quarterback away from I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but they're interesting. They're definitely interesting.
Yes. We have a super chat from the best Tom. Kirk equals the most mediocre quarterback to make the most money. You have to say this for Kirk. I mean, completely maximized whatever his value is. He's gotten every penny he could get out of it.
We were saying this in January. We were
Yeah.
saying in January, this guy, I mean, this is the second, the extension with Minnesota, I thought was a little bizarre because it just didn't seem like they needed to do it. But when he
Mhm.
hit the market in Washington and when he hit the market this offseason, he managed to perfectly find the year that he was the number one quarterback on the market two times in his NFL career. It's an
Yeah.
incredible achievement.
Well, the other
And
thing too is I feel like he's not afraid of the franchise. Like he's not afraid to go to another. Everyone's so afraid to go for a new contract. He's willing to do it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think I saw like if he plays just to his guaranteed money, which is like $100 million on this deal, um, he's going to make $331 million for his NFL career. Then if he makes the full 180, it'll be $411 million.
Yeah.
What a time!
It's unbelievable. Yeah, crazy stuff. You know, I mean, you know my feeling about this. I think this stuff, as a Buccaneers fan, I'm disappointed. Right? I would have much rather them said, "Oh, I wonder if Desmond Ritter still has it. Let's give him another year." Like I don't. I think that in terms of winning the division, I think this is a very good move. I think that there is a chance this could work out really well. Their defense was very good. I do think there's, we all know about their offensive weapons and all of that. But historically, the issue with these types of contracts, which Cousins has kind of become the like poster child of a contract like this, is it just puts a ceiling on your team, and it becomes really difficult to become a 13-win team. Although they did win 13 with Minnesota a couple years ago, but I think we all felt like that was a bit fluky. It's hard to be a team that can go on a deep playoff run with a Kirk Cousins getting paid like Kirk Cousins gets paid. He's a great player. He's a top 10 quarterback, but I don't know if he's fully, I just don't know if what the ceiling is for Atlanta here.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think, like, you know, I still don't know if I would have them in like my preseason if I were to like this is so early, right? Like there's still so many
Mhm.
free agency moves to happen. We still have a whole draft, all that's still to go. Like, are they still behind San Francisco, Detroit, Philly, Dallas, Green Bay? Are they behind those 5 teams in the pecking order still? Just off the top of your head?
I think you could. I think I could. I don't think it's crazy. I think best you could say is that they are third behind Detroit and San Francisco, probably. I think you could make that
Detroit and
argument.
San Francisco. I think you can make the argument too,
Hmm.
but I think you could also argue the other teams as well.
Yeah, they're in that tier for me right now of like the ceiling still feels like maybe a conference championship game loss, and then like but I expect them to probably make the playoffs.
Although I continue to think about it. Like, I don't know, like of the team, Kirk Cousins is better than the 2 quarterbacks that made the NFC Championship.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
so it's just like, I keep going back and forth with that. Like, at the very least, like put yourself in the conversation and maybe you have a few things break your way. Philly completely fell apart last season. That kind of knocked them out of the equation. Maybe
Hmm.
Detroit regresses, something like that. There could be injuries in San Francisco again. And at the very least, like you're the favorites in the NFC South now. That gets you in the conversation, at least at the end of the year. It's all 1 game playoff mode. So yeah, I don't know if you'll beat like Kansas City in a Super Bowl game, but you're in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean the 2 games against Carolina should help out your win total. It could give you a better seed. So no, it's a I think it's a very exciting signing for the Falcons. It's a fine move to make because again, sure, yes, you love to get Patrick Mahomes. You're not getting Patrick Mahomes. What else do you do, right? Like you have. So I don't have an issue with the move, even though I did. This is just the kind of team I typically bet against. What about the Darnell Mooney signing? I'm interested in that because I feel like he's shown flashes.
Mhm.
Maybe get him in a different situation. This could work out well. It's an interesting, and they needed more receiving help because
Yeah.
really it's like Drake London and that's it for their receivers right now. So getting to have Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson, but for receivers needed someone. I think it's a $13 million for 3 years, so $13 million a year for 3 years, which is I think that's a fine move as well.
It's definitely worth the risk, I think. I mean, it's
Mhm.
as crazy as it is. I mean, we're like what 2 years removed from Darnell Mooney being a number 1 receiver on an NFL team,
Yeah.
and that's
Hmm.
unironically too. Like,
Yeah.
yes, it was the Chicago Bears probably at their worst, but yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
he was the number 1 option there, and at the very least, you say him, London. Can we get the bets out of Kyle Pitts? Can this be a Kyle Pitts breakout season? Can this be a Bijan Robinson breakout season? Like, there's options there. And, he's going to be a lot more hidden, I think, in this offense to where he could have some big moments for them too. So I still think they could probably use another pass catcher, maybe draft one though, but I definitely think it's worth the risk.
Yeah, they're interesting team. Very interesting team. I guess I actually have a couple more thoughts on this before we move on. One, this happened with Dak as well. If you're a quarterback who is kind of like, should we pay him? Should we not pay him? And then you're having a great start to the year, just go down with an injury. Like that's because like this would not have ended well for Kirk Cousins, right? Something would have gone wrong. It wasn't going to end with him winning a Super Bowl in Minnesota, right? We feel pretty confident. I think that's a fair take to have. He had just gone on. He was red hot. They won like 3 straight games. We saw with Dak Prescott where he had like 3 really good games and got hurt. Like Tua, if you start the season strong next year, pretend you pulled something.
Yeah. Yeah, although, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting because I think the Dak conversation does become interesting this offseason because, he obviously played fantastic last year. I think he was a top 3 MVP candidate and deserved it too. I thought he played that well. Obviously, playoffs notwithstanding, but I think it's an interesting conversation because, like, it's very easy to see him kind of let down from what he was last year, right? Is last season the anomaly, and does he try and maximize that and get that extension now, or does he play it off this season and see what happens?
Yeah, should be interesting. Kyle, I have very minor Patriots news to report. Very minor. Former Patriot safety Jalen Mills, 1-year deal with the Giants.
Hmm.
League
Oh,
chattering.
okay.
Yeah.
League shattering.
hmm
Xavier McKinney replacement.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what they're doing with that. Let's move on. Let's stick in the NFC South. Why don't we? I want to talk about the Brian Burns situation, Kyle. Panthers, we've heard a million times at this point. Apparently, which I still don't know if this has been confirmed. I hear this said over and over again. It was a rumor. I don't know if it was a report. Don't know how true it was, but I also feel like if it wasn't true, someone would have came out and said that wasn't true by now. Apparently, the Rams offered multiple first-round picks for Brian Burns. But Panthers said, no, we like Brian Burns. We want to keep him. A couple years later, they end up trading him for just a second and a fifth. The Giants pay him a huge payday, $30 million a year for, I believe, 5 years. It was, I know this might not. So here's the thing. Everyone can sit here and say they should have taken it for 2 first-round picks. That's 100% true. Excuse me. We all agree. At the same time, at this point, I still think it's kind of the right move. It is like I'd rather have the draft picks and have the cap space to try and add to my offense, try to make it a better situation for Bryce Young than be paying $30 million a year for Brian Burns, who I like, but I don't know if he's a top 15 edge rusher in football. So like, I think it's good. I think it's a top 25 edge rusher in football. But to me, this isn't like I don't look at this as like what a blunder by the Panthers. It's the not trading for 2 first-round picks part that was a blunder.
It is the blunder. I think the problem with it is that it was just because of the false expectations that they could turn things around, right? Like they kept Burns thinking they could keep their defense playing well and turn things around that season. And you look at it now 2 years later, and this is a complete disaster. Because I mean, those 2 first-round picks could have like changed your franchise, right? Like that's kind of the risk you are playing there, and it's just hard not to look at that situation and think of that, right? And yeah, I think I agree with you that I agree with the premise that they probably shouldn't have paid Burns this offseason because of what you said. Their defense is already pretty good. They have younger defensive players, and I mean, arguably better defensive players with Derek Brown too. I don't even think arguably better defensive players with Derek Brown too that need to get paid, and they need to turn this offense around, which was one of the worst offenses in football. They need to do all of that, and it would have been really difficult to stomach a $30 million Brian Burns contract, right? So $30 million a year Brian Burns contract and do all of that. So I completely understand with all of that. I just think the false realities of what they thought that situation was a couple of years ago obviously is coming back to bite them now. And yeah, I mean, it stinks. But yeah, I think it is the right move to try and get something for this and not have to worry about paying him and rebuilding this offense. I agree.
Yeah. It was a horrible move to not take the multiple first-round picks deal. It would have been a worse move to double down on it and pay him, although I also think that they would have gotten less criticism had they done that.
Yes. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I mean, the optics of it look terrible, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's just no way around it. Like, it's just it's insane. So yeah, I completely understand. But yeah, I mean, It's tough. It's tough. There's not really anything they could have done differently at this point. Like this is a whole new front office regime. They're just trying to do what they can. But it does look silly looking back at, what they were offered compared to what they ended up getting. And that sunk cost value. So they ended up doing okay. And, we'll see what this front office can do. But yeah, I mean, it just stinks because they could have had so much more.
Yeah, it does remind me a bit of the, there's a sort of a famous, at least among Buccaneer circles, Hard Knocks clip when Jason Light was talking about the Roberto Agoyo selection, where he had a horrible rookie year. It was year 2 in preseason. He was still struggling. And Jason Light said, like, at this point, if we're keeping him, it's just trying to justify a mistake. It feels like that would, that's kind of how I view it. So I'm always going to defend a team that realizes they made a mistake and moves on. Let's talk about the rest of the Panthers as a whole. If you have more Burn stuff, we can say it, and then we'll get into the Giants side of everything and everything they got going on. Um, you know, so we said, so they went out, they added 2 guards, so they're trying to improve the offensive line in a way that makes sense. Okay, understood. They did add Ashawn Robinson and a couple other defensive players, but I do have to say, it's I there's receivers still available, Panthers. Like that's the kind of thing you need, right?
Well, we know where this is heading, right? Like this team has to be on the phone for 33 for Higgins now.
Yeah, I think so. That would make sense. But again, is that I mean, for T Higgins, he says I demand a trade, and they say, okay, we're calling Carolina. He might say, okay, well, never mind, Cincinnati. Okay, well, sure, I'll take your deal.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess as long if he's getting paid, does he
Yeah,
does he
if the
care
price
who's
is right.
throwing him the ball? Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It certainly is a tough situation. They have to be calling about that. They can't
Yeah,
go into next season without a solution to this. If
right.
they go into the next season with the same receivers, I mean, the whole front office should get fired again. Like,
Yeah, I
um,
agree.
so yeah, I mean, maybe they just try and go around the fringes. I still think they need a top end guy. I mean, there are plenty of receivers out there. I like is a Marquise Brown someone that could help? Is a Michael Thomas fly or something that could help? I mean, I don't love those options, but those are things that are out there. Chase Claypool still available too.
There you go.
Um, yeah, but yeah, I just think they have to be they should be in the front. There are a lot of teams that should be calling about T Higgins. They should be at the front of the line.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's go to the Giants. And again, I should mention we're not doing every single team. We're just doing the big notable ones. Next week we can do a team by team breakdown because there will be plenty of more signings and all that as we're still just in the early stages of free agency. The Giants. So the Brian Burns thing. We didn't talk about it a lot from their perspective earlier. So let's go back to that. I guess again, you know how I am about edge rushers. I get why they view it as edge rusher is the most important position. Let's secure a good edge rusher. Let's have the best defensive line in football with now Thibodeau, who wasn't great last year, but I still feel like he can turn it around because he was good as a rookie. Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence. Like, I get it, but it does feel like do the Giants realize there's like other positions besides defensive line?
Yeah. Doesn't seem like it, right? Like they
Yeah.
they they still have other areas of the defense I think they could upgrade too.
Hmm.
And they let 2 pretty good defensive players go, if I'm not mistaken, to bring in Burns, which maybe they could say, if they view that pass rush as the premium position, which is fine, that's their opinion. That's
Hmm.
how they value it. So they let those 2 guys go to bring in what they feel like is a high level pass rusher. Then I understand the move altogether. Doesn't mean I necessarily have to like it though, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, it is a lot. I understand it completely. I understand the logic behind it, especially as pass rush is viewed as a premium. But yeah, I mean, I still think they need some help in their secondary. Maybe they go to draft with that one. I mean, it, they brought in 2 offensive linemen, but I don't think they're necessarily that good offensive linemen. So I don't really know what to do with those. And it just seems like that it feels like it's going to be a very similar Giants team to last season, honestly. Right
Yeah.
now, we'll see if it changes, and
Yeah.
if they add anything else.
No, it just I feel like the Giants needed less of these contracts, not more. Like I think like in a vacuum, someone giving Brian Burns this deal, I wouldn't necessarily hate. I just don't know if this is like it's just a team building philosophy. I just feel like they're going to kind of keep getting stuck in this spot. Like I think Burns is a good player. I get why they wanted to do this, but it just feels like you're kind of, it's similar to the Kirk Cousins thing where it's not like you're not getting a good player and it's not going to help you win. I just think that those resources being maybe more spread out or put in different positions that you aren't already strong at could make it. But maybe I'm assuming the logic is we don't have to be good in the secondary if our defensive line is good enough. But as I've done a lot of content on this channel before, that's kind of really a myth. That's not really true.
Their logic is that they won 2 Super Bowls with an elite edge rushing group,
Yeah.
pass rushing group, and they're gonna try and do it again.
And why did they beat the undefeated Patriots? Everyone says, "Oh, we got pressure with 4." They didn't. They blitzed all day, and their secondary was able to cover well enough.
Yeah. I mean, uh, yeah, I mean, those guys up front were really good too, though. I mean,
Sure,
so I do give them credit, but yeah, I mean, they were also good in coverage. You need a little bit of everything. Like that. That's the correct answer. You need everything. You can't just
exactly.
overload people on the defensive line. Philadelphia learned that last year, right? They
Mhm.
went and double and triple down on the defensive line. They didn't address the safety guys they lost. They didn't address the linebackers. You need a little bit of everything on defense.
Yeah, and then Philadelphia also did that. They've now gone out and signed Bryce Huff, so they've not learned a lesson. Let's talk about
No, they're just,
let's go to Philadelphia. Actually, oh, go ahead.
okay. No, I was gonna say it's they were active this offseason.
Hmm.
Philadelphia, I think is the right way to put it. They are very active, and yeah, I don't know what. I, give me your thoughts. What are your thoughts? So they brought in what Zach Bond and then Bryce Huff and then Saquon Barkley. Obviously, is the highlight here.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Like it feels like you're like running the ball wasn't the problem for Philadelphia. And
Right.
obviously they can use Saquon in a lot of different things, but that's
Hmm.
a lot of money to, get a few pass catches out of your running backs. Um,
Hmm.
so I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, my men's mindset usually is if you can run the ball well, getting a good running back actually adds more value, not the other way around. Like that's like it's the 49ers adding McCaffrey, they could already run the ball well, but this gives him more opportunities to make guys miss in the secondary. I think Saquon Barkley is going to add more value to the Eagles than he would to the Titans, right? That's just how I view it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm with you. It's like I just think that they had some money to spend, and they spent it all on positions that they don't need anything to go. They don't need anything. And oh, Kyle, some Buccaneers news breaking. Levante David remains with the Buccaneers, as we all expected. Does stay official now. 1 year, 10 million.
There you go.
Yeah,
Got
so,
your guy back, future Hall of Famer. Makes sense that he's there. It's good for
yeah.
them.
So that's fun. But yeah, we'll do some Bucks talk before too long. But yeah, I just think it's they got players that'll help them, but I just think that what are you doing about that secondary? Because that's looking rough right now.
Yeah, I mean, what is their cap situation now? Do they still have money?
I'll look into it.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. There are so many safeties it feels like in this free agency class. And maybe they're still trying to get someone like a Justin Simmons or something like that. Maybe they're trying to figure something like that out. But it would feel crazy that they don't bring in one of these safeties, right? There's just so many safeties in this free agency class that I feel like they have to bring in somebody. And obviously the Kevin Byard thing did not work last year, so obviously you could, make sense why they didn't bring him back, but there's still a lot of guys that felt like they could have gone after that they haven't. And like you said, they doubled down on defensive end, a position they didn't really need to begin with. And then now all of a sudden, like, are they going to cut or trade Josh Sweat or Hassan Reddick? And how are they going to build around this defense beyond that?
Well, yeah, it seems like that's the thing, right? Because they're going to get rid of one of the edge rushers. So that's I'm not. I guess I shouldn't crush them too much because maybe it's the idea is well they're going to save money from doing that, so they're just putting that money into another pass rusher. And I like Bryce Huff, so I guess I understand it, but I still feel like I would rather be spending that money elsewhere. The Eagles, so they're actually okay cap space wise. They have about 40 million in cap space, but their cash is pretty high up there. So the cash they've spent, because again, cash tracker is always a better indicator than cap space because you can work around cap space. Can't if you don't have cash, nothing you can do. They spent the fifth most currently heading into this season. So because of that, I don't know if they're going to be able to spend too much more this offseason. Maybe a little bit, and who knows for sure. But I would imagine this is kind of it for their big free agents.
Yeah, unless they cut a guy, right? So,
Or unless the owner just says, "Yeah, sure, I'll take I'll give you 20 million more to make that work."
Yeah, I mean, it is possible. It'll be interesting, but yeah, I did think that that was a pretty interesting move. I mean, maybe this pass rush will be awesome and that'll work, but it still feel and maybe these corners will bounce back too, specifically Bradbury or something like that. But
Mhm.
it just feels like there's still too many issues in that back half of the defense.
Yeah, it's not one I'm, like, gonna crush or anything, it's just not one I was,
I
huge
like
fan.
Huff as a player. I guess I'll
Yeah,
say that too. Like he's a good player.
yeah, again, the criticisms of it's almost never it does happen, but usually the criticism isn't, "You guys signed a bad player." Usually the criticism is, "You guys signed a good player for too much money."
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah.
Mhm. All right. Well, let's go. Let's move on. Let's go to I mentioned the Buccaneers. I guess we can go here as they had a
Mhm.
busy. They haven't signed any free agents, but kind of their thing of re-signing Baker, re-signing Mike Evans, now re-signing Levante David, which just broke. They've tagged Winfield, and I think at some point would like to give him an extension along with Tristan Wirfs. They still have to give that an extension, but uh, you know. They're running it back, and also
Mhm.
re-signed a couple other role players. But it's something that I think I'm as a Buccaneers fan, I'm happy, right? Like we can have the same debate with the Kirk Cousins thing of does this put a ceiling on your team? How good can things really get? It's totally fair, but you know what? I'd rather be the Vikings the past few years than be the Bucks before Tom Brady. So I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. Obviously, the one is they did release Shaq Barrett, which
Yeah.
he's still valuable when he plays. It's just he isn't on the field as much. But yeah, I mean, I completely understand everything that they did, and why not run it back? Because it's not like you have a future quarterback option, and you're not in a draft position to really, unless you're willing to trade up a lot to go get one of these top three quarterbacks or something. But it just didn't seem like Tampa Bay was ready to do something like that. So might as well keep yourself relevant. And, it's not an insurmountable gap. Like we did say, I still think because Atlanta did add the quarterback, they're my favorites currently to win the NFC South. It's still very early, but it's not an insurmountable gap, I think, between Atlanta and Tampa, especially the way Tampa was playing towards the end of the year.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is, for one thing, the Baker Mayfield contract, I actually thought was relatively reasonable. Given I thought I was going to get more, 33 million a year for just 3 years and just 50 million guaranteed, so they can get out
Hmm.
of it after a year with some cap hit, but nothing. It's they're not like the Daniel Jones thing where their Giants are kind of stuck with Daniel Jones for at least 2 years and would still be hurt the second year. Again, it's not a good situation if it goes south, but it's not a disaster situation either for the Baker Mayfield thing. And yeah, it's the other aspect is giving him another year with these players. Baker's never had stability. Yes, there's a new offensive coordinator, but it's an offensive coordinator he's worked before. So I can fully talk myself into it at the very least, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, look, like once again, like you said it right. Like the ceiling is a bit of an issue, but could this team's probably not going to win a Super Bowl, but can they win 10, 11 games next year and win the division? Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible.
Is the NFC South sneakily looking pretty good with the Buccaneers, Falcons, and the Saints? They could have three playoff teams that all lose
Well,
in the first round, Kyle. It's possible.
the Panthers are still there, so that doesn't help.
Yeah, that hurts, but I left them out for a reason.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I mean, I don't know. The Saints kind of feel basically the same again. Like maybe you get a healthy Derek Carr season and he
Mhm.
bounces back again. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It should be interesting. The one move I didn't love is the Carlton Davis one. I know he didn't have a great year. I know you're saving 14 million and getting a third round pick. Buccaneers fans are a fan of it, but I value corners. I would have rather kept it because I think our quarterback room looks a little rough right now. I don't want Zion McCollum being out there every snap. We have to address that in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume you guys have to go that way first round, right? Like that's probably
Yeah.
your first round pick at this point. I don't even know, like unless you want to add what another offensive lineman to the mix, because that was also something you kind of need at this point too. But yeah, I think you have to go corner because you lost Sean Murphy Bunting last year and you lost Carlton Davis this year, so that's tough to make up.
Yeah, and you know how I feel also about going into the draft saying we need to get this one position. That's always a scary situation. It worked out well when they needed a tackle and a safety, and they got Tristan Wirfs and Antoine Winfield. But that's usually not how that works.
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right, well, let's move on. several other ways to go. And if you have a team you want us to talk about other than the Patriots,
Uh,
we could talk about it. But or go
I
ahead.
guess the one team I found pretty interesting this offseason, just from the offseason up until the other day is, I mean, it's probably going to be the Miami Dolphins for me, right? Like maybe I don't know if this
Hmm.
has been talked about a whole lot, but this is a kind of roster gutting situation, isn't it? Like,
Hmm.
I understand not wanting to pay Robert Hunt that money. It was a huge contract, but he
Hmm.
is a really good guard. They haven't brought back the center yet, from what I remember seeing.
Yeah, well, they,
Um,
they added Aaron Brewer, who plays center, so that's probably, yeah.
okay, yeah. So I mean, they swapped out centers. I mean, they still don't know what's happening with Teron Armstead. He might not come back. And Yeah, I mean, they let a bunch of guys go. They obviously, very notably did not franchise tag Christian Wilkins, so they didn't bring him back. Um, yeah, it just feels like it's going to be a whole new team next year, right? I mean, this is how competitive do you view this team next season?
I don't know. Also, just quick correction. It was announced that Armstead will return. They restructured the contract. He'll be here. He will play next year for them. But
Oh, okay.
yeah. You know, I don't know. Like, I'm kind of with you in that. Like, they did lose some. Like the Wilkins thing. It's kind of surprising. Like the guys like that usually don't hit the open market. Now, again, he got paid a lot, so I'm not saying it's the worst move. They did add Shaq Barrett, which is an interesting. I think that's a good flyer for just 9 million. Um. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know if any of these moves are like devastating. I still think that the strength of this team is Tua and those receivers. I agree. It seems like they're in a bit of a rebuild and kind of clear space, but like it does feel like this is kind of should be an all-in year, right? With Tua about to get paid, and they're kind of going the other way.
Yeah, definitely going the other way. So yeah, I mean, I just think that's an interesting proposition why they went so far the other way on this because they let good players go and they could have brought back Christian Wilkins potentially. Um, They could have brought back Christian Wilkins potentially, and they lose Xavier Howard, and they still have really good players. They still have Ramsey, they still have Holland on that defense. This is going to be a whole new scheme defensively, though. I mean, I just think all of that becomes very interesting. I'm not the biggest Jordan Brooks guy, although that deal isn't terribly bad. So he's just one of those high tackle guys that I don't think presents a ton of value.
Hmm.
So yeah, I just think it's a interesting. I think this team's worse off than it was last season, and we viewed this team as kind of a letdown team in January, and we thought this roster was one of the better rosters in the NFL, and I don't view them as maybe one of the better rosters in the NFL going into next season. Still, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you. This was a disappointment. What you wanna? You have any more? You want to go to another team?
No, that was my interesting thought there. As far as other teams go, you know, Raiders made a couple splash moves. That's kind
Yeah,
of
I was.
what
I
they
was
do.
Raiders
Yeah,
was
go
where I was
ahead.
gonna go. You want to go there?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, again, they added Wilkins to just kind of to tie in their 4 year, $110 million deal, which absolutely he should be a Raider, right? That just fits.
Yeah. He's got the energy for it for sure. So
Yeah, he will
that'll
not
be.
have to learn the Mahomes rules. So that's not something you're
Yeah.
gonna have to really get in his head.
I do like that they finally brought in an interior guy to pair with Max Crosby
Hmm.
because if
Yeah,
they paid another edge rusher, I probably would have lost my mind. Uh,
yeah, another edge rusher to not what you didn't weren't a huge fan of the Chandler Jones signing.
Chandler Jones, Yannick Ngakwe, although I think that one was cheap by that point because I think
Mhm.
he had kind of lived up to his billing. Um, Tyree Wilson, Cleveland Farrell with draft picks too. I mean, uh, only so many times you can go edge and not let it work out. So I like Wilkins. Wilkins and Crosby. That's one of the meanest defensive lines in the league, right? Like just those two right there. Like
Yeah,
if I need a bar fight, I'm picking that team for sure.
that's a good one. Yeah, what would be other like bar fight ones? I think I would just pick Raiders if I got out of a coma 20 years and they said, "Hey, you need a bar fight right now. Which defensive line are you taking?" I'm just saying Raiders.
Yeah. I mean, Aaron Donald and Kobe Turner would be
That's
formidable.
good. I think Aaron Donald and anybody. Now that I think about it, yeah, I'm taking
Yeah.
that one.
How about I mean this Giants one, that's not too bad either.
Yeah, this is. I suppose so. I suppose so. Yeah, there's a lot of I don't know, a lot of good. I think just in general, a bar fight most NFL defensive linemen are going to win.
Um,
Maybe not Washington.
no, not anymore. They traded
Yeah.
all their guys. You know, I like Matt Judon. I'm not sure I want him behind my back in a bar fight compared to some of these other guys.
Perhaps. A guy who looks like he gets in a lot of bar fights, Gardner Minshew, signs with the Raiders, which also feels like such a Raiders. Like, that's going to be fun. And listen, I know, Aiden O'Connell's our starter. I don't know if that's going to, it's kind of the same thing with like how, it was Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask to start the year, and eventually it became clearly Baker Mayfield. I'm wondering if that's going to happen here. I don't know. Maybe O'Connell will do all right, but, I just I wasn't like a hater of Aiden O'Connell. I think he's interesting, and maybe they'll give him a start just because he's younger. But like, I think Minshew's going to get some playing time. He got paid $25 million for 2 years, $25 million total for 2 years. I think usually when you give that guy, when you give someone that money, either he's going to start or you're drafting a guy.
Gardner Minshew is 1,000% playing this year. He can't play for the Raiders and not get on the field. Whether it's intentional or because of an injury or something, we'll see. But he's definitely getting on the field.
Yeah. And is it surprising that Minshew didn't give get like a bigger, more attention here? As he did lead the Colts nearly to the playoffs last year.
I mean, what do you get? $12.5 million a year? Like, that's not too shabby of a deal for a top 32 quarterback, right?
It's a little shabby. It's shabby-ish.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the big thing for me is like it's bigger to me for the Colts. Like, this team needs a backup plan, and especially if you're going to play a guy like Richardson. I mean, as I was saying last week, like, or a couple weeks ago when we did our rookie draft our first round rankings, is Anthony Richardson's injury history has been documented since high school.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely need a backup plan back there. And maybe, the scheme was a little weird, going from Richardson to a guy like Minshew, but, he really kept that team afloat and kept them in the conversation last year. So I definitely think that's going to be something that has to be addressed for the Colts.
Well, here's a slight issue. Do the Colts know free agency has started? Are they aware that you can sign? Do they understand free agency at all? Do they get how that
yeah.
works?
Well, they've managed to re-sign all their guys again. They've done that.
Classic Colts. Yeah. They're like, we got our guys, we're good.
Yeah, and paid a receiver. That's a big step forward.
Yeah, doing a lot of good stuff. Again, a receiver that they drafted though.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, always good stuff. Yeah, they need to address the backup, but also, Richardson's going to be their guy. I don't think they want to do another, as fun as last season. But I'm with you. Like, you have a solid team. Like, you don't want to waste a year if Richardson gets hurt again.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a tough equation, I think, there. So, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be fascinating for sure. But that's definitely something they have to address, and it's not going to be easy in that division because Jacksonville's been a little active this offseason, and Houston's obviously still got plenty of stuff going on, and they did some work too, and that's not going to be easy at all.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Let's go to the Packers. Why don't we? I think they're another fascinating team. They get Xavier McKinney, who is a kind of a big time and a pretty reasonable deal too. Like, safeties don't get paid what I think they deserve for a good safety. I mean, I don't know. McKinney's weird, right? Because if you look at what he was last year, it's like, wow, that was great. Did awesome in a bad situation. But that's also the only year he's done it. Now he kind of has excuses, like he's been banged up, like, and like all that. But like, still, that's not necessarily a pro. It's an interesting move. I guess that's probably why it's not huge, because if you're getting what he was last year, it's a slam dunk, amazing move. But is that going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, it is a question, and I'm honestly okay with it because this team just needed to make some moves, I think, defensively and change some things up. It had looked so poor, I thought, especially in the secondary the last couple of years. Like, I'm okay with them making a move and taking a chance here, and maybe it does work out. He did show that he could be a pretty good player. I mean, he was awesome last year, so we'll see. But I definitely think it could definitely work out. I definitely think it could work out for them, but it is a little bit of a risk. This team managed to get younger somehow, and I think it's going to help the defense though.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it was the right move. Kyle, guess how old Josh Jacobs is?
I saw this. Isn't he like 26 or something?
Yeah, 26.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, I would if you told me 30, I'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, he's been around. He's been around a long time.
Uh-huh.
It feels like at least. So, do you think Josh Jacobs is better than Aaron Jones?
Well, so here's the thing. 2 years ago, it's actually, I think, now that I'm thinking about it, I think like 3 or 4 years ago, I made a video where I was just like trying to do a series where I compared 2 players to try and get like multiple fan bases to watch a video. And I did one on Aaron Jones versus Josh Jacobs. So like, I think they were pretty comparable players for the most part of their careers. Last year, I think Aaron Jones was banged up, so he missed some time. But when he was out there, I think he was pretty clearly better than Jacobs. Didn't have a great year last year, and maybe that's just.
Yeah.
I do think Jacobs kind of can only really be successful with a good offensive line, so maybe that's part of it. And maybe that's not. I don't know if that's fully fair, but like Jacobs definitely is someone who needs a good offensive line more than someone like Jones. Not saying that as a negative to Jacobs, just as a play style thing. So maybe it's a situation thing, but like I don't know if they're fully upgrading.
Yeah. It feels very much a lateral move. I guess you could say it's more upside, right? Like Jacobs two. If you get Jacobs out of 2 years ago, then that's an upgrade, right? If you get
Mhm.
Jacobs last year, then it's a downgrade.
I think it's just an age thing. I really think that's all they care about.
Yeah. And it could be. And it could be. And I think that makes some sense. So it felt like a very lateral move, but maybe there is an upside play there. And like you said, he is younger. Um, and I do think he has more upside. It just I thought it was a little bit interesting moving on from Jones to pay Jacobs that contract. Definitely no Zoom meetings for running backs this offseason, right? We don't have to worry about those.
Know what?
No Zoom meetings.
Am I those Zoom meetings? What is that?
They did the Zoom meetings last year, the whole running backs committee thing, because they were worried about
Oh,
running
that's
backs being
right.
phased out of
Y-
football or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh
yeah. No Zoom meetings this year. They all got
yeah.
paid. They all got their money.
Right. Except for AJ Dillon. He's still on the market.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe they bring him back. Bring him back as the secondary guy.
Yeah, it's honestly not a bad idea because it's like, oh wow, a backfield of Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs, this will be fun. And then immediately Aaron Jones was
Yeah.
cut, and also him going to the Vikings. That's something we should have talked about. All these players going to division rivals, right? Like Patrick Queen, Aaron Jones, and
Gino,
yeah,
what's
Geno
his name?
Stone.
Yeah.
Geno Stone went to the Bengals. Also Saquon Barkley to the Eagles. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a tweet that was pretty funny. I wish I remember the account because I could shout it out, but it was like imagine someone waking up from a coma from like 2019 and saying Aaron Jones is on the Vikings, David Montgomery is on the Lions, and
Mhm.
it's just so funny to see all these running backs kind of move teams in the NFC North. Like we just needed some way to get DeAndre Swift is on the Bears. Um, you
Mhm.
know, we just need to get Dalvin Cook on the Packers and we're good.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose so. Why not? Yeah. So solid stuff by the Packers. Nothing like earth shattering, but I think it's good stuff. Good first step here.
Yeah, I mean, I've liked what they've done. I think it's good, and I think they upgraded at safety at the minimum, and I think it's going to be a better team. So, as long as a lot of it defensively is going to be scheme though, and how they adjusted that scheme. So, I think it could be very good.
Yeah. All right. Well, where else do we have to go? Where else do we go with this? Not have to go. We don't have to do anything. We can leave right now if we want to. Where else do we want to go? Are there any other moves we haven't talked about? I guess the Jaguars did some things.
Yeah, Jaguars and Texans kind of loading up for that divisional race. It seems like because I think you would call them the two divisional favorites so far. Um, the Texans, what they get? Joe Mixon, Aziz Al Shaair. Um, Jeff Okuda, I think, is a pretty good flyer too. So I don't think those are bad options. Jacksonville, obviously, they get Gabe Davis. Not a bad contract, I think, overall. So they get a few guys too. And, obviously, it was reported Mitch Morse, another guy. Obviously, it was reported that they are in the market still for Calvin Ridley. So it is an arms race for the AFC South title. Haven't said that in a few years.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and again, we'll do our whole recap next week of everything that happened. These are just the first thoughts for those of you who missed when I said that earlier, just tuning in now. So if you're disappointed we haven't talked about your team, we'll get to them next week. But Oh, Kyle, you didn't even mention the biggest news. A guy whose jersey you own, Mac Jones, on the Jaguars.
It's a good backup option. I don't hate it.
You think it's
Um,
just a backup? I
yeah.
don't think he's gonna take the starting job.
No, I don't think they have to worry about that.
No, I don't think. Yeah, probably not. You know, I'm interested in what Jacksonville's doing. I think I'm wondering if the Gabe Davis. I think the Gabe Davis move I would like if they also keep Ridley, right? That feels a lot better for me.
Mhm.
If like, oh, they're getting another option. I hope he's not their replacement, which I don't think that's their mindset. And yeah, everything else, was fine. Texans are also interesting. They had all this cap space, but also a ton of places they had to re-sign. I don't know, Kyle. I guess Jeff Okudah's fine. Whatever. I'm
It's a
not.
flyer, right? Like
Yeah.
they paid him $4 million. Like
I just feel like if
it
you get
could,
drafted third overall, you always get like a flyer. Like just take 1 year, $5 million deals, no matter how bad you play. Another team will talk you into it.
yeah. I mean, we're still not removed from him being like a playable cornerback too, right?
Yeah, you're
Like it
right.
was a
You're
couple
right.
years
It's
ago.
fine.
So,
Hmm.
um, you know, Jaguars still probably in the market for an edge rusher, you'd say.
I would think so. They got to make sure they keep Josh Allen though, because they put the non-exclusive tag on him.
Right. Right. So, yeah, I mean it is fascinating. Like I don't know cuz like I guess here's my question. Did the Jaguars actually get better? Like obviously it's still an incomplete grade, right? Cuz not everything's happened, you know. Um Assuming like they still are in the market for a receiver like Calvin Ridley and him and Gabe Davis and Christian Kirk is their option. Like is the gap between what Darnell Savage and Rayshon Jenkins, Ronald Darby and Darius Williams, like did they get better? That's my question.
I think a little. I think a little. I don't know if massively, but I think the Jaguars, what they need to do to get better is to have a healthy season out of Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, probably could help if they had some offensive line help in front of them too.
Yeah, there's they did re-sign Ertz to Cleveland, so I guess doing a little bit there. Kyle, breaking news, earth-shattering news: the
Oh,
Colts have signed a free agent.
oh man, here we go. Who'd they get?
Raekwon Davis, defensive tackle from the Dolphins, for a 2-year, $14 million deal.
Now the Dolphins guy leaving.
Yeah, so even the Colts are poaching from the Dolphins at this point. Everyone's a Dolphin poacher.
Yeah, I mean, Xavier Howard would be a pretty interesting play this year, right? Like, where does he go?
I don't know. I feel there's a lot of good free agents.
There's still a
This
lot of good free agents. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun time to do the show because there's the big storylines, but there's still gonna be plenty more to talk about next week.
Yeah. Someone's gonna watch this in like 3 hours and then just be like, "You forgot to talk about this, this, and this." And it's like, well, we were live. What do you want us to do?
Yes, it's currently 6 Eastern on Tuesday. That's when we're recording this. So all the comments, for all the comments saying, "Oh my God, you guys didn't talk about Mahomes to the Patriots," it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, once Patrick Mahomes ends up in that Patriots uniform, you all just wait. We'll be back.
Do you think they'd make the playoffs?
With Mahomes?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think they would.
you think so? I don't know.
They
The
have a
offense is
better
tough.
receiving core than the Chiefs did last year.
Who do they have at receiver that's better than Travis Kelsey?
That's true.
And also
Taking
Rashee Rice is very good.
I didn't say tight end. No. I'm just-
Okay. Well, yeah. If you take out anyone named Rice, the receiving core for the Chiefs is way worse than the Patriots.
Yes. Hey, I like Kendrick Bourne. He's back, coming back. It's gonna be good. Hunter Henry coming back. We're loading up, man. Once we get T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley, it's over.
Okay, yeah, and Mahomes.
And Mahomes too. Yeah, don't forget that.
Okay, yeah. So was there anything else we missed? Anything we had to, DeAndre Swift to the Bears? I don't know if that's anything you already talked about Titans to the or Pollard to the Titans. Anything else? Did we get it all?
I think we hit the big ones. I guess sneaky signings. Like I like Geno Stone to the Bengals. We
Yeah.
did kind of mention it for
Hmm.
briefly, but I did like that deal. I think he could be pretty good there. Um, I'm now just scrolling through the list and seeing if there's anything that
Oh, I know.
stands out.
It's on what we're still talking about, the Joe Mixon trade.
Yeah, another running back. It's the year of the running back.
Uh-huh. Well,
Um,
it was weird because it was announced he was going to be cut, and then Texans were like, "We'll trade for 1 year of like $8 million Joe Mixon." Sure, why not?
Yeah. I guess it is pretty crazy what Damian Pierce did his rookie year, and now they're like, you know, bringing in Joe Mixon, but
Yeah,
both guys help, but I don't know. He should definitely help compared to what they had running the ball last year.
yeah, I agree. I think that should, yeah, Damon Pierce. Man, my Damon Pierce running back one take looks so good after a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it's tough. It's tough. Running back's volatile, I guess.
Hmm.
What other moves did you like? Did you like Frankie Louvu, the Commanders?
Whatever.
He's pretty good.
Okay.
He's a good player.
Yeah.
Um, Vikings letting Daniil Hunter go and bringing in what Andrew Van Ginkel and who's the other guy they signed at edge? They signed two edge guys, didn't they?
Let me double. They had it was Andrew Vinny. Yeah. Oh yeah, Jonathan Gennard. That's one we should talk about.
Yeah. So letting Hunter go to bring those two guys in. I mean, is that enough of an addition by 2 for 1? I mean, it's probably cheaper, honestly. Wouldn't you
Yeah,
think?
I think it's fine. I think Hunter's getting up there in age. I think he's still very good, but his sack count was a bit inflated last year. So
Hmm.
I like Blake Cashman too. I think that's an interesting signing. That's a good one. Aaron Jones. I guess the other thing we should talk about was that. Oh yeah, how do we not? How do we wait till the Vikings are definitely a team we should talk about because the whole losing Kirk Cousins thing. Sam Darnold is currently quarterback one on this roster. Are they just going through a tank?
Well, I think they're going to draft somebody, right? Like,
But they don't have a great
uh,
pick.
what's their pick?
I'll double check, but it's not like top of the you know
Yeah, it's not
league.
top 10.
Hmm.
Um,
But yeah, you say something, Kyle.
yeah, I mean,
It's not just wait a minute until I figure out the
yeah,
pick.
no, it's
Sorry.
it definitely seems like it's a tank situation, but I guess they're 11th here. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they've been a pretty trendy pick for JJ McCarthy. And I guess if that's their option, that's their solution, maybe go for it.
Hmm.
But like, yeah, it's probably a tank.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. It's definitely interesting. What's going on with them, but it feels like they're in a bit of. I guess I don't know. It's weird because like some of these moves don't speak like Aaron Jones 1 year $7 million doesn't feel like a rebuild move.
No. And that was the thing that's so frustrating, I guess, by Cousins leaving. Obviously, I think he's going to a good situation in Atlanta. We said that they could be in the conversation, but this team was so much better last season defensively than we thought. And now they get Jefferson and Cousins healthy, you'd think, and it's like, okay, this could be a pretty interesting team. But maybe it is the right time to tank, right? The Packers are on the rise. The Lions were right there in the NFC Championship game. Maybe this is the opportunity to tank. Bears getting
Even the
Caleb
Bears.
Williams. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it the time to tank? Is it the right time?
Yeah, tanking really should be done a lot more, but I'm glad it isn't.
Yeah, I mean, it is really tough. Like, I love the NBA. I love basketball, but it
Mhm.
is really tough having to watch the Wizards. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want a lot of Washington Wizards, Detroit Pistons in your life.
Are you,
Um,
if do you watch a lot of every time those two teams meet?
I mean, they're on every now and then. I just peruse League Pass and find some games, and sometimes that's the game, man. Sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to watch, 25 Kyle Kuzma shots and just get it out of your system.
I guess so. I guess I don't know. Maybe you could throw on a movie or something.
I could. I'm not a big. I gotta watch more movies. I'm
Mhm.
behind.
Gotcha. Yeah. Oh, we didn't even talk at all about the what Aaron Rodgers, future vice president.
Is that happening?
From Tom Pelissero, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has recently approached Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers and Jesse Ventura about serving as his running mate on independent presidential ticket, and both have welcomed the overtures. Uh, do the Packers get a comp pick if Aaron Rodgers leaves to go be vice president
Yeah.
or Jets?
Yeah, that would be an interesting career move. I'm not sure they're going to be on my ballot. I got to say, RFK Jr. and Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, maybe not. Let's not get too political here, Kyle.
Yeah, I'm just going out on a limb saying I don't think I'm going to vote for that one. I won't get into too much more beyond that. Imagine when your two options are Aaron Rodgers and some guy named The Body.
Yeah, I think that there might be some publicity at play here.
Yeah, that is a maybe have to go through the candidate pool again.
Can you imagine if Rodgers had to like take like if he was playing football, but also like going to these like like I don't know, going to like meetings, like debates and stuff, like trying to campaign at the same time.
Yeah. Well, John Adams did say that vice president is the most useless position in most useless job in the world. He hated doing it. So maybe, your one main job is that if there's a tie between that, if there's a split vote with the House and Senate in the House, right? That's basically your only job.
Yeah,
And
still
that
more
never
power than I want
happens.
Rodgers to have.
Yeah, that never happens. So
Hmm.
don't have to worry about it, I guess.
I think it happens. I don't think it never happens.
Well, I don't know. I guess we'd have to do the data on it. I don't even know if I said that right. I think it's like when the Senate ties, because there's 50 Senate seats or 100 Senate
Yeah.
seats. If the
Uh-huh.
Senate ties, you're like the tie-breaking vote. Like that probably
Here's
happens once in a billion years.
I don't think it's once. I think it happens pretty because usually there's around especially when there's 50 Republicans and 50 Democrats. It happens quite frequently.
I can't imagine it happens that much.
I want I want a new segment of Kyle explains the political system to us.
All right, let's
That's
do it. What do you want me to talk about next?
I don't know. Listen, I thought what are the three branches of government?
There's the executive, judicial, and the legislative.
Look at you,
Let's
Kyle.
go.
I don't know if I would have gotten that.
You asked me a question you didn't know the answer to?
Yeah,
Okay, well, fair.
I think us trying to explain the political system would be, I think, bad for everyone.
We could do a whole political podcast. Give me an hour. I'll do some prep.
Yeah. Joe says, "Ask me. I work in politics." Guys are getting off track. Yeah, we're getting off track. Let's wrap up, Kyle. Let them know where you can find us on Twitter before we head out.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Gronin, and make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That is at On the Sideline JK.
Of course, you like audio only podcast. Anywhere you get your audio podcast, just search On the Sideline Podcast. Should be available there. Yeah, Kyle. Any final thoughts?
No. Let's get out of here. Calvin Ridley, please change your mind. Tyron Smith, come to the Patriots. T. Higgins, you want to be a Patriot? Let's do it.
Yeah, sure. Someone says politics is not Kyle's thing. That was really bad. LOL. Okay, well, we're on a live show. We're doing what we can. Let's not, we're doing our best.
Hey, man, I got one question right. That's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly. That was good. You nailed it.
Yeah. So let's get out of here.
Okay, let's get out of here. Again, thanks to everybody. We do appreciate it. Until next time, have a good one.
Peace.